Have you ever had a time where you thought that you weren't good enough for a position or for a particular job? And then you knew you had the credentials, you knew you had the work experience, but you kept telling yourself that you weren't a good fit. Or people around you are constantly saying, how smart you are and how good you are, but you still fight within yourself, saying, you know what, they really don't know me. They really don't know my skill set. Or you don't try something because you automatically think that what you can do is not what needs to be done. If you're suffering with any of that, that's what we're talking about on today's episode. The fight within, believing that you're not enough, and imposter syndrome. But before we get into that, welcome to Embracing the Fight. I am Erica Lamar, your digital creator and host. And if you've been with me since January 2023, you'll know that Embracing the Fight is about normalizing the conversation surrounding physical and mental health issues and concerns. And I started the conversation off talking about my journey through thyroid cancer, which is over as far as I'm concerned. Because the last time I visited a doctor, they looked at the PET scan and they didn't see any cancer. And if you don't see any cancer on the PET scan, then where is it? It's not here. So I rejoice in the Lord and I am so grateful, that He healed me. And I'm doing some follow-up tests, but for all intents and purposes, I am healed. I no longer have cancer. But let me go. I would love for you to subscribe to this YouTube channel. If you're watching this and any of the stories resonate with you, I would love for you to be a part of my community. And if you have a story and you want to share your story or your testimony on Embracing the Fight, just reach out to me at operations@diversitydesign.com, or in the show notes, there's a link for Calendly for you to go in and select a time and a day, and we'll just have a discussion and see what you want to talk about. Also, you can follow me on social media: Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, X, and Blue Sky. All of them are Embracing the Fight, except Instagram is a little different. It's Embracing the Fight _ All right, now that I've gotten the business of everything out of the way, what I was talking about, earlier, I've noticed that a lot of people, talk themselves out of doing something that they were designed for because they feel like they're not enough or they don't have, enough experience. So let me give you an example. I know someone that is a mental health therapist. And they haven't been doing it very long, but the life that they actually lived prepared them for the position that they had. So their, manner in clinic, the advice that they provide, everything, lines up with, what would be expected of a more seasoned, mental health therapist. But because they don't have the years, behind them after the degree, they feel like, maybe I'm not the one for this, or I should accept lower pay. That's not the case. When you have the experience, when you have the knowledge, when you have been battle tested and tried, why would you think that you don't have what it takes to succeed? And then another thing you'll notice, there are people that are walking around that's like, everybody tells me that I'm really smart, and everyone tells me that I write well and I do good work and all these things, but I'm still living beneath who God wants me to be. Why is that? It's mainly because of self-doubt. And a lot of people don't understand that self-doubt stems from something deeper that could have potentially happened in your childhood, or you could have been put in a situation where your true ability wasn't tested, but the people around you took your ability and made it something less than what it is. So let me give you an example. Say, for instance, you are a dancer and there's, say it's the Nutcracker. And you could actually be, the Nutcracker because you dance so well. But instead, they put you on the edge, of the stage, just kind of in the shadows dancing. And the people who came to see you was like, oh, all you did was you were on the edge of the stage in the shadows. You didn't have a main part. Even though everyone else in the crowd noticed how you beautifully stood out, and they were saying that you should have been the one that was Nutcracker, you never heard that. You only heard the voices of the people closest to you. And that's something that people don't realize causes self-doubt. The people you surround yourself with and the things that they say and the things that they allow you to handle or do shows you how much they believe in you. And if it looks like they don't really believe in you, then your self-awareness says, hey, I must not be as good as I think I am. And in comes the self-doubt when all you need to do is change rooms. Because everyone does not recognize the greatness that's on the inside of you. They only see what they want to see because sometimes folks are just, jealous or they don't want you to be better than they are, which is, nuts because I want my friend circle to be like the bomb. I want everyone to be rich, happy, in the best shape of their life, with amazing businesses, inventions, ideas, whatever it is, because iron sharpens iron. So people who struggle with self-doubt, that that iron is rubbing up against some copper. It's rubbing up against some brittle stuff, that as you're rubbing up against it, you're making those people uncomfortable. So you can't, or should I say, you can, but you choose not to let yourself shine and be great around those people for fear of losing those friends. But I'm here to tell you that if the people around you can't celebrate you for who you are, those people aren't your friends anyway. You should spend time doing things that you love to collect people that are like-minded and they'll love you too. And then you'll notice that the more you're loved, the more you're encouraged, that self-doubt starts to fall away. You start to try different things. You start to believe more. You start moving, in the right direction. Try it and see. Another thing that people suffer from is, imposter syndrome. And imposter syndrome is basically thinking you can't do something, even though you have, all the experience, everything that you need, in the background. For some reason, you think you are fake or a fraud or a phony. If, say, you were an engineer for 25 years and they have a project coming up in your church and they come to you and they say, oh, we heard you're an engineer. Can you, help look at some of these schematics, these diagrams, these blueprints, these plans? Can you help us with this? And the first thing you say in your head is like, dang, you know what? I used to do that when I was, working for a company, but I don't know if that applies, to what this church is looking for, and I don't want to disappoint them. No, you've had the experience. If those people didn't think that you had the experience or they could trust you, they never would have come to you. And a blueprint is a blueprint is a blueprint. A schematic is a schematic is a schematic. Whatever you did to read, look, and understand those things when you were doing it at work, you can do the same thing with this church. So I don't know why you would talk yourself out of something when you have the experience, you have the knowledge, and you have everything that you need to help change or assist with whatever is going on. I'm sure you have it in your heart to do it, but you're afraid that, oh, if I do this and I mess it up, everybody's going to look at me like, like I'm inadequate. But how is that any different from what you're doing to yourself right now? Self-doubt and imposter syndrome is all deeply rooted inadequacy or feelings of inadequacy. And it basically comes from not filling yourself up with encouragement, with joy, surrounding yourself with amazing people, filling your heart with God's word, filling your heart with the love of God. And most of all, sometimes it just takes you looking in the mirror and giving yourself positive affirmation. I'll tell you something about me. When I first, um, when my job was eliminated, when I first lost my job back in August of last year, I decided, that I didn't want to go back into that industry again because they made me feel like I had imposter syndrome. I knew that I had everything that I needed to do the job that I was doing, but for some reason, they just, didn't think it was good enough. When everything I did, people, who would come visit where I was and they saw the work that I was doing, they'd be like, oh, this is amazing. We need to do this at our facility. I even recall getting some accolades from a safety group that came in and did an audit. And after they finished giving me all these high praises and stuff, the person who was the director was like, oh, it's just because that's a new installation. And the guy was like, no, she's got one new and two old. And the two old are just as clean as the one new. You can see that she loves her job, she cares, and you could tell that her people care. They know what they're doing, they're trained and they're safe. But the whole time they had me believing, that I just wasn't, good enough. I just didn't know enough. But I'm sitting here going, oh, no, I know this stuff. And my guys were coming to me saying, you shouldn't be our manager. You should have your own facility. You should have your own plant because you know how to treat people and you're smart. And when we have problems, we can come to you and talk to you about them and you help us work through them. Like you have very unique quality of a great, manager. Lots of managers don't have that, in them. They just come in and they're thinking productivity, and you're thinking safety, productivity, all that rolled in together. And then you don't mind letting people be human. And that really stuck with me because when I left there, it was like I was like, well, who knows what's next? Because how do I take what I've learned over these last 22 years and turn it into something that, is economically viable? Because like I said, I did not want to go back into that industry because it was already tough, for certain reasons, because the demographics were quite different over there. I'll just say it that way. But of all things, I realized something that the people, had told me. They were like, whenever they come in with something new, you're able to learn it and teach it, to anyone. You might not want to be a teacher, but you could be a consultant. And I was like, why would anybody want to come to me to consult? But then I thought about it. I said, you know what? I do know a lot of different things, and it is easy for me to explain things and teach, people how to do things. And I started my consulting business. Now, I've had so many people come to me and tell me that I make difficult things very easy. I've had them, explain how I've helped them do tasks that take hours and minutes. I've had people, just amazed at my writing ability. And they'll say, if I had to write a proposal, with that much information, all those statistics and references and things of that nature, I wouldn't have been able to do it in a day. And all the stuff that I thought was just second nature wasn't. It's a gift. And because I have those gifts, there's no need for me to believe that I have imposter syndrome. So think about what gifts you have. What is it in you that you can do, like it's, second nature? It's just simply easy for you to do, that you can help others to do. That's what you should focus on to help you fight that, self-doubt and imposter syndrome, because that's what helped me to fight it. Even though I knew I was smart, even though I knew I was kind and I could put all this stuff together to help people and do all these different things, it was always a fight. It was always a struggle. Like, what happens if, this doesn't work out? Well, guess what? If it doesn't work out, God has something else for me to try. So that's the other thing about, self-doubt. once you try something and you fail, that's not a bad thing. It's just letting you know that you're feeling forward towards your success and you have to keep trying. So don't talk yourself out of trying something for the fear of failure. Because if you don't try it at all, that's failure anyway, because you didn't try it. You never know, if you could do it. So that's basically what I have for you all today. I want you to, really love on yourself. Really tell yourself about the amazing things that you can do. How smart you are, how creative you are, how kind you are, how you're able to break down, complex problems and make them very simple for others, how you're able to nurture children, how you assist the elderly. It doesn't have to be what you do for a living. It could be what you do, that truly is your heart's desire. The thing that makes you feel blessed and honored to do. Those things will help you erase the self-doubt and the imposter syndrome because, nobody's paying you to do it. And you are putting your best foot forward and nothing but goodness is coming from it. All right. So, you know what? I want you all to really sit down and look at yourself and just say, you know what? I am beautiful or I'm handsome. I am intelligent. I was created for greatness. There is nothing about me that is mediocre. I am the one. Now, I'm not saying that for you to turn into a narcissist. I'm saying that to help you lift your spirits, to know that your best self is only waiting on you. Thanks for taking time out to listen to this episode of Embracing the fight within, dealing with self-doubt and the imposter syndrome. And as always, I want you all to have an absolutely amazing day.